I'll have in front of them.
I'm supposed to have three.
You're supposed to have two.
Two?
1, 2, 3, 4. They do look similar, don't they? No worries. Who else?
I don't know what the other one was.
1 and 2.
Unless you're counting the free quiz.
Anybody else need?
Has got
Oh, Caleb's got him. He's hoarding them.
Well, here, you can have all of them. I don't want any of them.
No, you gotta have your 2.
You need to have one.
Your 2 and pass back.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so the topic is real numbers and properties. Real numbers and properties. And the way that we denote real is R double bar. So your double bar, and then your R. The way that we denote real is R double bar. So very important, very important, very important. I had a teacher in my master's program that when she said that, she wanted me to know for sure that that was something that we need to listen to. Yes, sir. Of course. You're welcome. Bye-bye. So she would say that over and over and over when she wanted us to really listen. And so I picked up the habit and just say, very important, very important, very important. All right, so R double bar, but now what is the difference between irrational and rational? I'm going to highlight the stuff that is important. So irrational and rational. And it's numbers that never terminate and does not repeat. Never terminate and does not repeat. All right? So it has to meet both criteria. Rational numbers either terminate or repeats. So they either terminate or repeat. What do I mean by terminate?
Just move,
What did you say, Shay?
or take it away, I guess.
So it ends, right? Terminate just simply means to end. Ben, do you prefer Ben or do you prefer a different name?
Chase.
Chase. Okay, I knew I was missing something on that again. So what is the decimal form of a quarter? How would I write it?
1/4.
So that's the fraction form.
0.25.
So it would be 0.25. Does that end?
Yes.
So it terminates because there's no numbers that keep going on and on and on and on, right? So would that be rational or irrational?
Rational.
It would be rational because it ends.
So like pi would be irrational.
Pi would be irrational because it never ends. It keeps going on and on and on and on and on. I had a student, I love him to pieces. Last semester I called him laminator because that was his favorite word. And laminator could quote pi up to like the 15th decimal point, right? And I just thought that was crazy. But it was something that he just learned as a child, and he still knows it. And I just thought that was really crazy. But anyways, it keeps going. Even though laminator can only say it to the 15th point, it keeps going on forever. Never, ever, ever ends. Life lesson. What is the difference between this and or? When you get married, and what, tell me, Aston.
And there's two things, like you get two things, or you have to choose between them.
Exactly. So on the receiving end, and you get both, or you have to choose. On the numerical end, and means they have to meet both conditions, or means it can meet one or the other. And so that's where I was going with my life lesson is when you get married, I'm gonna use myself as an example. My husband's name is Jeff. On our checking account, it makes a major difference if your checking account is in Jeff and Ashley Harrison or Jeff or Ashley Harrison. If your checking account is set up as a married couple, Jeff and Ashley Harrison, if something was to happen to either one of us, the other one does not have control of the account. You have to file all kinds of different paperwork, go through the probate court. It's a whole lot of mess, right? Because you have to have both of us. Well, if one of us is dead, you don't have both of us, right? And so when you set your checking account up as a married couple, you need to set it up like Jeff and I have it set up, and the majority of married couples do it because banks typically ask this question. It's just become rule of thumb. Ours is set up Jeff or Ashley Harrison. That means if one of us, if something was to happen to us, then the other one has control over the funds. So that's just like with rational and irrational numbers. That and means that it's got to meet both conditions. It does not terminate and it does not repeat. Or it can be one or the other. So in this case, it terminates. And so that makes it a rational number. What about 1/3? Who still, does anybody have a calculator at their desk? Even though I told you today was the day with the phone problem, I'll let you do it because you're doing it for me. What is 1 divided by 3?
Isn't it like
0.33333333333333.
Does that terminate?
No, it's irrational.
It does not terminate. Shane, you said it was rational. Why is it rational?
No, it's irrational.
Okay, Shane says it's irrational. Why do you say it's irrational?
Because the numbers never stop going. It never ends.
Okay, so it does not terminate. But what about that second condition?
Who sells not repeat, so it's rational.
Oh.
Because it has to be an alter criteria.
It has to be both. So it is a rational number because it repeats.
But what about it terminates?
So with rational, it can be either or. So it doesn't terminate. That's okay, as long as it
Wait,
repeats.
so for it to be irrational, it has to be both, not just or? It has to be
It has to be and, it's both. It has to be non-terminating, non-repeating. Okay? So now we get to the point of the story about how numbers came from. I love it. I love this story. So in the beginning, think about Cain and Abel. In the beginning, we had two types of people. We had hunters and we had farmers. Isn't that true? Those of you who know the story between Cain and Abel? Yeah. Cain was a hunter and Abel was a farmer, right? So we have Cain and Abel. We're going to call those hunters and gatherers. All right? So in the beginning, we had hunters and gatherers. No matter how much you like meat, your body cannot survive on meat alone. You have to have fiber in your diet, okay? Plus a lot of the other vegetables that only come from fruits and vegetables. And so therefore,
That's actually not true. It's just the fact that people don't want to eat the heart and the liver these days. You actually get most of your nutrients.
okay, so I'm not going to eat the heart and liver, so I've got to have vegetables.
And like if you watch a pack of wolves kill something, you'll watch the alpha, you know, he will go in and he will eat the liver and the heart, and then he'll let everybody else feast.
Yeah, I'm not gonna eat it, so I've gotta have those vegetables, right? And a lot of people, do you eat the heart and the liver?
Oh, yeah.
Ugh,
And like moose, I'll eat the brain too.
ugh, no,
Oh, it's good.
I can't, it's just getting past the thought of it. I can't do it.
What if you make the brain of it?
Oh, I've eaten the brain of a moose and
Okay, so anyways, we're gonna get back
it's
to,
just good.
I'm gonna tell my story the way I want to tell it. We gotta trade, right? We've got to trade. And so the hunters needed to trade with the gatherers. And the gatherers needed to trade with the hunters. And how do you trade if you don't have numbers? Because you have to count, right? So I'm gonna trade one buffalo section for one bushel of corn, right? And so we've got to trade, and we had to have those counting numbers, and we call those numbers natural numbers. We denote it with an N, and that is natural numbers. Natural numbers. I'll trade 2 ears of corn for 3 fishes.
Fish. 3 fish.
Fishes. I like fishes. You can get out of English. You've been in English too long. So those are natural numbers, and they start with 1. They start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ... They start with 1. Because you're not going to trade 0 something. You're going to trade 1 for some other number, right? Shane's wanting to trade 1 ear of corn for 18 buffalo, right?
Seems better.
So what about when you have a drought?
You need water.
You don't have anything. It's kind of like, I believe it was Louis Armstrong that sang that song, I ain't got nobody. Nobody. Y'all know that song?
I think that's a song a little bit too old for it.
Y'all are missing the classics. So how do you denote nobody? How do you denote nothing? What number do we use for it?
0.
0. So here we have the whole numbers, and that's when we bring 0 in. So we've had this drought, and the farmers don't have anything to trade. So they had to say, I ain't got nothing, right? I have nothing to trade for you. And so then, if they have nothing to trade,
You don't get nothing in return.
you make a
Don't
deal.
So you'll pay them back later.
And we call that debt. You give me 2 fishes today and I will pay you back 6 pumpkins tomorrow, or whenever the drought ends, you know? And so therefore, we call that debt, and that is when we bring in our old friends, the negative numbers. All the way up. 1, 2, 3. So it includes all the numbers before plus the negatives. Plus the negatives. And welcome to the world of debt. Right? So now we can go in debt. We can trade. We can also declare that we don't have anything. But we're getting really more creative and advanced in our society. And so perhaps we don't want to trade a whole buffalo. What do you think comes next? Fractions. So maybe we want to trade 1/4 of a buffalo. Or 1/2 of a buffalo. Or I'm going to pay you back If we normally, when I have something to trade, we trade 1-to-1, then I'm gonna pay you back 1 and 1/2, just because you're advancing me a buffalo today.
Wait, why did you put the negative sign?
Because I want you to know it's debt, yeah, and that you can't have negative fractions on rational numbers. So you can't have negative fractions. We had to bring those fractions into the program, right? So then, last thing, the very last thing that we have is irrational numbers, and that's those non-what? Starts with a T,
Non-terminating.
non-terminating,
Repeating.
repeating, exactly. So irrational numbers we denote with an I, and the most famous one is pi. Goes on and on and on and on and on. And why do irrational numbers come about? Because we got advanced in our society and we started with advanced mathematical calculations. And so that's where the irrational numbers came about.
When did someone come up with pi?
You know, that's a good question. Google it and tell us tomorrow.
Yeah, 'cause what's getting an engineer on the movement tunnel machine?
Yeah.
I know, right?
I mean, Billy, he's gonna work on
What? You're talking about killing mathematicians.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. We just have science. Or the man who created school.
So,
His name is James.
what is the most basic in our number story? Natural. So natural goes in this circle. And then we step our way up. So we started with natural.
Mhm.
We started with our natural numbers, the counting numbers. Then we included 0, so that is our next circle. We'll just keep including more and more and more, right? So we have whole numbers, then integers,
And then rational.
and then rational,
And then the little circle down there is irrational.
and then irrational.
Where's that school?
And this is the real number system.
It's true.
The entire thing is the real number system. So don't be surprised.
We don't know those classes.
Negative, Best Rider, you're not gonna play. If tomorrow, when you come in, you have a bell ringer on this very thing, perhaps I'll ask you to identify some of these numbers. Or to give me
All
an
right,
example.
Wolverine, there are 3 minutes left in class, and you know what to do.
Go ahead and, on your way out, are we listening?
Yes, ma'am.
On your way out, make sure that you leave your quiz in